So in case you haven't seen the clip of George W. Bush speaking in Dallas at his little George W. Bush Presidential Library that has a much fancier name than that. Anyway, earlier this week, George W. Bush goes out and he says, he condemns the attack on Ukraine. But he said Iraq first, which of course has been labeled as one of the biggest Freudian slips in political history. But late night host Seth Myers kind of saw this as an opportunity to not just remind the public how bad George W. Bush is, but to remind them of something that I think too many people have forgotten, and that is that the incompetence, the deception, and the corruption of that Bush administration is what paved the road for Donald Trump. And before I read what Seth Myers said here, let me just start off by saying, this is honestly one of the most brilliant political analyses I've seen, especially considering it's coming from someone outside the political arena. Here is what he said. Here's an extremely and shockingly real clip of former President George W. Bush giving a speech yesterday where he discussed Russia's invasion of Ukraine and accidentally confessed to being a war criminal. I really am certain that clip was designed in a lab to melt the brains of anyone who was alive in 2003. Back then, if you had called the invasion of Iraq brutal and unjustified, the Bush administration and Fox News would have spent an entire week calling you a traitor, and every time you went to the airport, the TSA would have given you the full cavity search. Remember, this was a time in our history that was so hysterical and intolerant of dissent that people started calling French fries freedom fries because France opposed the war, which was both petty and pointless. There's a direct line from Bush to the modern GOP. The Trump Republican Party is the natural evolution of the Bush Republican Party, which was lawless and authoritarian and used culture war hysteria to stir up resentments and scare voters the same way the modern Republican Party does now. They've just switched to different topics. I wish I had said that. Like, those are words that I truly wish had come from me. Those are words that I wish we would hear on cable news. I wish we would hear those words on the Sunday morning talk shows. But we don't. Instead, we have to hear these words from a late night talk show host, a comedian, an entertainer. Like Seth Myers, again, he is not in the political arena. This is the kind of thing that back in the day, Jon Stewart would have said on The Daily Show. And here, we have to rely on Seth Myers, and I'm not knocking him at all. I've been incredibly impressed with Seth Myers. But shouldn't the people that are paid to be political come up with these kinds of analyses? Like, why are we having to rely on comedians to give us the unfiltered truth about what's happening in this country? Again, I go back to Jon Stewart. That's why so many people were tuning into The Daily Show. That's actually why viewers of The Daily Show were the most politically informed, according to research done at the time, than any other news consumers. This is what we've got. So thank God Seth Meyers is out there doing this. Thank God Jimmy Kimmel does it a lot too. Because if not for these people, their audiences would likely be in the dark. Let's remember, folks, most people do not tune in to cable news. Most people don't. Most people don't get political news from YouTube. They're not out there reading all these news sites every day like some of us have to do. They just live their lives. They tune in at the end of their busy day to get a laugh from people like Seth Myers. And without even realizing it, they're getting a better political lesson than they could probably get anywhere from cable news. So thank you, Seth Myers, for doing what you do, because you're bringing these issues in a funny and intelligent way to an audience that likely otherwise wouldn't get them. Hey everyone, this is Aspen. And did you know that for the low cost of $0 per day, you can subscribe to the Fair and Balanced YouTube channel? We also encourage you to like, comment, and share. But again, click that subscribe button and help Aspen not be so grumpy.